socially radical, socially radical, socially radical. Socially radical, socially radical, socially radical. Guitarist. Outside your window and see your reflection. I can tell we're headed for a course. I can tell you've seen so many people running down your shoulders. Oh, poor thing. I can tell you've seen so many shadows. I can tell you've seen so many horrors. But in time we can get it together. When you wake up and turn your pages, when you wake up and turn your pages, you find that all you've done is never ending. You find that all you've done is never ending. You look outside your window and see your reflection. When you wake up and turn your page,
welcome to another episode of Socially Radical Guitarist. So the song you heard just now is from Kojo Easy Damptey. The song is called Reflections, and it's from the album, and this is a long one, Giants, with kind of the subheading Stories of Existence, Resilience, and Resistance. The beautiful album cover showing all pictures of the famous Pan-Africanists throughout black socialist struggle. So just going through the disclaimer of the show, any of the opinions expressed by the host or any of the guests are the respective opinions of the host and the guest. They have nothing to do with Radio Waterloo, any of its subsidiaries, or any of its affiliates. So, no, try as you might, you can't sue public radio. This disclaimer also applies to the African and Caribbean Inclusion Center. While they are sponsoring the show, the opinions of the hosts and the guests that are coming on are the respective opinions of the hosts and the guests. They have nothing to do with the African and Caribbean Inclusion Center. So, don't sue the nonprofit either. Support the nonprofit. Make sure to go to the website and give whatever you can. Every little bit helps. Imagine if 1 million people gave $1 or 1 million people gave $10. You don't think it's much, but if everybody around the community contributes, it does matter. It does make a difference. So give what you can. Now, going through, now Kojo, he's very famous in Ghana. He hasn't really penetrated in the Canadian market, but he's very famous in Ghana. And the type of music he's playing right there is really just, traditional, funk R&B mix from, the Americas. And the beauty of how the guitar is applied in a song like this is the beauty of simplicity. Simplicity ends up, winning the day. And there are really only two key features of the song where the guitar stands out. But when it does stand out and when it does play these simple riffs, it makes, it really fills it out. And you can really, it really distinguishes itself. So... So that's what you'll end up hearing during the chorus. And you'll hear that during the chorus, and you'll also hear... Yeah, it's not doing much. The lower sounds you'll hear with the water pedal generally. I have a simple little tap thing. It's not a wah pedal, so I can't really replicate the sound exactly. But the key thing about how funk and R&B, it's very beautiful, and the guitar is very beautiful in R&B tracks and in funk tracks, is that with a lot of music going on, with a lot of keyboard, a lot of bass, a lot of drums, and vocals, the guitar actually can't do too much um, without overcrowding the music. So the very creative thing that funk musicians, guitarists did um, over the history, the development of this music, when funk grows into R&B and the other genres, is that they found a way to imprint themselves without crowding the other musicians, and that's using these simple, two note lines, um, one note lines, and what that ends up doing is it'll end up filling up the space. You'll hear the guitar, it's distinguished, you'll know what it is, and it gives a groove. If you do it right, it adds to the groove of the music. And at the same time, it's like it fills the whole music, gives it all of that extra color. And it's quite a shame that Kojo hasn't been able to penetrate here in Canada when he came. He's in Hamilton. He runs an active nonprofit organization. He's active in the community. People in Hamilton know him, and he's doing a lot of good things for the community. But the music isn't even catching up to where Cornet is. I mean, Cornet at the very least has a whole province backing him. Um, but Kojo doesn't even have like Ontario really. I mean, if you look at the the Spotify listens, I mean it's obvious. Like I think it's unacceptably low. Like the music is very good. There's a lot of socially conscious lyrics, and at the same time, um, like it's very well played. Um, the genre itself, I mean, it should at least have penetration with people who like that genre. Um, it's one of these many things that I see is kind of flawed about music, how it's portrayed, how it's promoted, all of these other things. Um, Music is self-released, and a lot of the music being digitized in the internet age was generally supposed to give an opportunity to um, musicians coming out of nowhere, coming into the woodwork. But you don't really see that translating. You still see that the means of production, the owners of music with all the means of productions, the Universal, Sony, all these other major music labels, they're still able to dominate the market and control what's disseminated. Um, they control what the media is disseminated, and I think that's kind of the tragedy. What's happening with Kojo is that he's portraying very socially conscious lyrics. He's trying to promote really Pan Africanism, and you can see it very clearly from his album cover. I mean, the first thing at the top of the tower is a picture of a turtle carrying of the New York. So it's basically a very decolonial message, that this is Turtle Island, and that the nation is built off of the back of Turtle Island. And as you go down further, you see portrayals of um, Angela Davis, Kwame Nkrumah, Malcolm X, Thomas Sankara, a lot of Pan African, socialist, communist, black revolutionaries. Um, it's a very beautiful, beautiful artwork, but I think that that artwork is probably a no go for the major labels. Add to the fact that he self released, but actually, it's better to self release when you're trying portraying such a radical message like that. Um, because I'm pretty sure that he would be faring even worse if they even signed him, if they even bothered to sign him. So that would be an interesting scenario to look at. But we've seen what happened with Dayshell. Um, when they went independent, they fared better in every respect. It's when they signed with the major label that they went down. And it's a shame because that was a very well produced and very well made album. I think it should have done as well as the other ones for sure. Um, Incidentally, I tried to have him on the show, but scheduling issues, things like that. Hopefully, he'll show up one day, and I would love for the opportunity to break the one rule that I had before, where I always try to make sure that the same musician isn't playing twice. So I'll only play a song at the end if it's a request from a guest, or I'll only play from the same artist if the artist appears as a guest. So it would be a great opportunity for me to break that rule. So Kojo, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on. Hopefully, scheduling issues can be cleared up and we can have you on. And you can speak for yourself about what you were thinking with that album cover and what you were thinking when you were making this album. Yeah, so another person that I wanted to have on, but was probably a little unrealistic, was Ariel Posen. Um, Now, Ariel Posen, he's kind of he's got more clout, a lot more clout than a lot of the other Canadian guitarists that you generally see. Um, but I still think he's really undervalued when you compare his music to John Mayer's music. Um, if you just look at it objectively, what is the difference? In fact, Ariel, from a technical standpoint, does a lot better, and sometimes he plays even better, more interesting music. And yet, for some reason, John Mayer is the one with tens of millions of monthly listens. And Ariel Posen, you probably haven't even heard of him until you tuned into this show today. And that's a tragedy, I think. It definitely shows there's a serious problem with how our society is constructed in order to promote the arts and promote culture. I mean, I've said it before on the show, but if you think about it, the educational institutions, there's a lot of pressure to make sure that the product of these institutions is good for capital. So while teachers will do their job and they'll have the music and the arts and all of those other things available, it's generally only available for the elite because of those extra lessons, the cost. Like a middle class home might be able to squeeze in some lessons, but the top tier lessons are only going to be from the high end. I was lucky because my father went to a prestigious school, Berkeley College of Music, and he was able to impart those lessons to us for free. But not everybody's going to get that quality of musical education to help with their musical consciousness and to appreciate sophisticated artwork in the musical field. So you'll have that situation where it's a dual problem, where the masses generally come out and they're not able to appreciate higher, more sophisticated forms of music. And at the same time, the bourgeoisie, conscious as they are, is making sure that the music is controlled and propagates a convenient message. A message that suits the narrative and suits their right to rule, so to speak. Their divine right of rule. That's why they made it a point to monopolize, commodify control of music, control of the media, control of other things. They're a conscious class. That's why they're the ruling class. They're aware that they rule. It's not a mystery to them. It can be a mystery to a lot of people, but not to them. And it definitely shouldn't be the case for communists. And that's the role of a communist, is to elevate the consciousness and awaken the consciousness of the masses. And the message here is that culture, propagation of culture, is another arena of class struggle. And even when it comes to Western culture, there are two distinct cultures. There's a proletarian culture and a bourgeois culture. So, things to think about. So, the next song coming up is going to be Ariel Posen. And the song is actually not his. It's done by a guy named John Martin. And he always does this song at the end. It's called Angeline. This is a live recording for the album Fairbank. Yeah, so Familiar Ground. Yeah, it's from the album Familiar Ground. So stay tuned for that. We'll play that and then we'll do the political segment. Be right back.
Angeline, did you hear me singing? Oh, Angeline, in the heat of the night. Oh, Angeline, did you hear me singing? Crying for your name in the cold moonlight. It really don't matter if you leave It's only love. Sweet love. Oh, Angeline, will you always be with me? Oh, Angeline, will you always wear white? Oh, Angeline, I don't wanna be lonely. Oh, Angeline, please stay with me tonight. It really don't matter if you leave in the morning. It really don't matter if you never come home. Oh, it really don't matter if you take to another. It really don't matter. You leave me alone. It really don't matter if you leave in the morning. It really don't matter if you never come home. Oh, it really don't matter if you take to another. It really don't matter if you leave me alone. It's only love. Sweet love. It's only love. It's only love. It's only love.
Hello, welcome back. Socially Radical Guitarist. So, the song you heard just now, Ariel Posen, from the Familiar Ground album, playing the Angeline. Um, the solo is always beautiful. That particular version is the one I like the most. That's why I had to get that one on the show. And Ariel, you know, um, I did send that email. Look around, fish around, look through. Um, I know I'm not big now. I know I'm very radical. This is a socially radical guitarist, but I am a guitarist too. I appreciate what you do, and you are always welcome on this show. If you feel like coming down, I'm here. Yeah. So, I didn't mention it in the first half, but the election is in 2 days. This opportunist election launched by the liberals. I mean, um, the polls, um, about 69% have had said that this should not have been done during the pandemic. So rational, reasonable people, 80% of whom actually went out and got the vaccine. 75%, well, no, 80% were partially vaccinated. And the only reason why they weren't fully vaccinated is because there was about 3-4 month lag between the first and the second. And that was always silly. That was always ridiculous. I mean, this rollout, um, this operation was not a very good one. But you see this clumsiness in capitalist states everywhere. Um, Not like any of the other parties would have done much better. I mean, I think it basically would have been the same. U.S., largest capitalist state in the world, is by far the worst at managing the pandemic in the world. Greatest, supposed so-called greatest country, the worst. So of course, everybody knows what my opinion is on the elections, and if you're gonna vote, you all know what I'm gonna say about the vote. I'm not going to say much. I think I might be in violation if I say anything now during this period because I'm going to be working as an election official actually on the 20th. But yeah, I mean it's important for people to take the pandemic into consideration. Why there were lockdowns for a year and a half. Your lockdowns that were sporadic, incoherent, didn't really make that much sense, and really didn't stop the virus from spreading. You see, if you think about it for a minute, the virus is always going to spread exponentially. One person gets it, they might spread it to one person, or it's two people. The two people will spread it to two people. That's four people. Four people will spread it to four people. 16 to 16. So it's exponential. So if you really want to stop it from spreading, the thing that you need to do is to stop new cases. What's happened was the government deliberately had a strategy of lowering the amount of new cases. So if it was at a manageable amount of new cases, then they would open up the economy again. But that's not the way to do it. You open up when the cases are gone. That's how every socialist state did it. When the cases are gone, then you open up. Until then, you stop. And even in countries where they did sort of do that, New Zealand, you'll find they did the lockdown, wait until the cases were gone, sure. But the economy ended up being crippled. So why were the socialist economies able to recover while the capitalist economies ended up being crippled? So you think about it this way: control of the means of production, what it ends up meaning. If hospitals are owned by the state, and or owned by cooperatives, which one, either or, as long as they're all following a plan, a coordinated plan. And in my case, that's the case. Food production, even though it's by cooperatives in China, and it was like that with the Soviet Union, and it is like that with Cuba and Vietnam, they'll follow a plan, a direction, and in North Korea as well. So they'll follow direction, and then when things stop, and then when things start again, they're able to ramp up. So, people are always wondering, okay, so why didn't it work with the Soviet Union when it did with China? And they think it's because of capitalism, but actually, what China did was make enough of a compromise that they were able to reintegrate into the global market and to the global economy, so to speak. So, no country is going to have everything. No country is going to have all of the materials. Trade is going to be necessary. Access to the international economy is going to be necessary. So you can't take a dogmatic view in that situation, especially if most of the states are still capitalist. You can take the view that some of the Soviets did, which is export the revolution. So aggressive exporting of the revolution was the stance they took. But it ended up being perceived, and quite rightly, as social imperialism, as the Imperial Russia returning. And they wanted to do that while at the same time advocating for peace and coexistence with the United States because they had nuclear weapons. So, that contradiction and that hypocrisy was what China was pointing out. And during that split, you found that that's where the friction was. It was Khrushchev thinking that Mao was too reckless about nuclear war, and Mao really just pointing out the hypocrisy of saying you're going to be exporting revolution and at the same time advocating for peaceful coexistence with the United States. So you can't rectify those two things. It's a contradiction within a contradiction, and it ends up leading to conflict. Those were the underlying roots of how the Sino-Soviet split occurred. But going into the future, you see that the approach that China was backed into a corner had to take, and that the U.S. was more than happy to give them because it was a good way of driving a wedge. It was to have a compromise, have common ground, where China opens up foreign investment. They also allow foreign direct investment, and they allow domestic capitalism to emerge within their country in exchange for trade of technology and somewhat of a rapprochement. The U.S. is open to that because they're trying to drive a wedge and trying to at least separate these two socialist states so that they can take down one and then go to the next. Um, but it ends up backfiring because what it has ended up proving is that um, worker control of the means of production has turned out to be, over the last 40 years, the unparalleled driver of economic growth. I mean, there's the economic miracle of China, Vietnam, even Cuba to some extent, because they were able to develop the best healthcare system in the Americas. It is the best. It is better than Canada. It's better than the United States. It's better than Venezuela, and they're doing that under blockade. Vietnam grows amazingly. Laos also has a miracle. North Korea, we don't know what their numbers are. The numbers are all fictional from just made up numbers from South Korean press. But if you actually look at a country and you look at videos of the country, videos of the development, you see that actually they're not starving. There's food production everywhere. The Pyongyang is industrialized. There are very city centers that have industrialized. They have opened up. They've allowed foreign direct investment. So there are areas where that is happening. And yeah, like by any measure, if you actually look at North Korea objectively, you'll see, yeah, granted, it's still behind South Korea, but it's catching up pretty quickly. And they've efficiently managed their forces where at least their military, if you look at the military of North Korea and you compare it to South Korea, it's modernized. So the only advantage that South Korea had over North Korea initially was that they had more advanced military equipment. It wasn't modernized or anything. But if you looked at the last parade, the military parade, all of the North Korean soldiers are wearing modern military equipment. They have modern armored vehicles, tactical vehicles. They no, honestly, it looks like you can't really tell much of a difference between that parade and the Chinese military's parade. And in many ways, that probably is an accident, but it also is an indication of North Korea's growth. It shows that even under sanctions, they're able to efficiently manage their resources because the predominant control of the means of production is by the workers. So those are the things that people should be thinking about beyond the elections. This COVID pandemic has exposed it. The largest capitalist state in the world has the worst healthcare system in the world. The United States has the worst healthcare system in the world. And every other country after that is a capitalist country. So, worse than Brazil, worse than India, worse than Mexico. All these countries that they generally look down there, they have the worst healthcare system in the world. And this healthcare system failed epically at dealing with and stopping a pandemic. And none of the capitalist countries really did all that great at mitigating both the economic damage and the health crisis. So that's something to think about. If you look around the world, there are solutions. If you look around the world, there are alternatives. You can learn from the rest of the world. There's no country that's better than the other. I know O'Toole likes to say this is the greatest country on earth. That's nonsense. No country is better than the other. You can't look down on other societies. Everybody's got something to teach you. So, I honestly would say that you are already making a fascist utterance when you say that thing. And the other politicians are guilty of saying things along those lines. But no country is better than the other. There are things you can learn from other countries, things you can learn from other societies. So that's basically what I hope is the takeaway while looking at this circus of an opportunist election. And I'll say my piece on that. I don't want to be partisan. I want to do my role as an officer fairly. But at the same time, you know what to do. The solution is right there for everyone. You've got to do it on your own. You can't depend on other people to help you. We've got to do it together as a class, as a society. Yeah. So with that, we're going to end the show with another song that was abandoned, another album that's abandoned, another group. And this group, they had features with Misha, Mansoor, and Spencer Sotelo, both prominent members of Periphery. So, and yet this album is, and this band only getting 550 so monthly listens. Not good. But so this is going to be Being Cosmonaut. So Cosmonaut, this name the song, featuring Misha Mansoor from Being. The album is Anthropocene. Excellent album. Listen to the whole thing. There isn't a bad song on the album. Very cosmic, very surreal, very out of this world. Maybe take you out of this world and away from this election for a moment. So with that, we're going to have our outro and then the song, and then that'll be the end of the show. Goodbye, everyone. Socially radical. Socially radical. Socially radical. Socially radical. Socially radical. Socially radical.